Hello, boys and girls. Today we're going to do something new. We are going to start reading a chapter book together. The book is called Because of Winn-Dixie, and it's written by Kate DiCamillo. And I'm going to read you a chapter of it a week, and then there will be an assignment to do along with it. So today we're going to start with chapter 1. Please listen to it once, just listening. And then the second time, I would like you to listen to it again and maybe a third time and think about the descriptions of the characters in the book. And then I will give you a Google document, a graphic organizer to complete 3 character traits for each of the 2 characters that were introduced in chapter 1. So I will explain this a little better after we read chapter 1. Now I'm going to read to you chapter 1 from this book. Chapter 1. My name is India Opal Bulani, and last summer my daddy, the preacher, sent me to the store for a box of macaroni and cheese, some white rice, and 2 tomatoes, and I came back with a dog. This is what happened. I walked into the produce section of the Winn-Dixie grocery store to pick out my 2 tomatoes, and I almost bumped right into the store manager. He was standing there all red-faced, screaming and waving his arms around. "Who let a dog in here?" he kept on shouting. "Who let a dirty dog in here?" At first, I didn't see a dog. There was just a lot of vegetables rolling around on the floor, tomatoes and onions and green peppers, and there was what seemed like a whole army of Winn-Dixie employees running around, waving their arms just the same way the store manager was waving his. And then the dog came running around the corner. He was a big dog and ugly. He looked like he was having a real good time. His tongue was hanging out and he was wagging his tail. He skidded to a stop and smiled right at me. I had never before in my life seen a dog smile, but this is what he did. He pulled back his lips and showed me all his teeth. Then he wagged his tail so hard that he knocked some oranges off a display, and they went rolling everywhere, mixing in with the tomatoes and onions and green peppers. The manager screamed, "Somebody grab that dog!" The dog went running over to the manager, wagging his tail and smiling. He stood up on his hind legs. You could tell that all he wanted to do was get face to face with the manager and thank him for the good time he was having in the produce department. But somehow he ended up knocking the manager over. And the manager must have been having a bad day because lying there on the floor, right in front of everyone, he started to cry. The dog leaned over him, real concerned, and licked his face. "Please," said the manager, "somebody call the pound." The pound, boys and girls, is like the dog shelter where they take dogs or cats that are on the street that they don't know who they belong to. So the manager wants to take the dog to the pound, and sometimes at the pound, dogs can stay there alone for a long time. It's not a great place for a dog to go. "Wait a minute," I hollered. "That dog is mine. Don't call the pound." All the Winn-Dixie employees turned around and looked at me. I knew I had done something big, and maybe stupid too, but I couldn't help it. I couldn't let that dog go to the pound. "Here, boy," I said. The dog stopped licking the manager's face and put his ears up in the air and looked at me, like he was trying to remember where he knew me from. "Here, boy," I said again, and then I figured that the dog was probably just like everybody else in the world, and that he would want to get called by a name, only I didn't know what his name was. So I just said the first thing that came into my head. I said, "Here, Winn-Dixie." And that dog came trotting over to me just like he had been doing it his whole life. The manager sat up and gave me a hard stare, like maybe I was making fun of him. "It's his name," I said, honest. The manager said, "Don't you know not to bring a dog into the grocery store?" "Yes, sir," I told him. "He got in by mistake. I'm sorry. It won't happen again." "Come on, Winn-Dixie," I said to the dog. I started walking, and he followed along behind me as I went out of the produce department and down the cereal aisle and past all the cashiers and out the door. Once we were safe outside, I checked him over real careful, and he didn't look that good. He was big, but skinny. You could see his ribs. And there were bald patches all over him, places where he didn't have any fur at all. Mostly, he looked like a big piece of old brown carpet that had been left out in the rain. "You're a mess," I told him. "I bet you don't belong to anybody." He smiled at me. He did that thing again where he pulled back his lips and showed me his teeth. He smiled so big that it made him sneeze. It was like he was saying, "I know I'm a mess. Isn't it funny?" It's hard not to immediately fall in love with a dog who has a good sense of humor. Come on, I told him. Let's see what the preacher has to say about you. And the two of us, me and Winn-Dixie, started walking home. So that's the end of chapter 1. Now, if you look at the Google Doc entitled Because of Winn-Dixie, chapter 1, the directions say, after you have listened to chapter 1, please listen again and pay attention to the descriptions of the characters. What do we know about Winn-Dixie and India Obolbulani from the descriptions of them or their actions in chapter 1? Complete the graphic organizer with 3 traits of each character. When you finish with the graphic organizer, please share it with me. So if you have any questions, you can always send me an email. You can also share this with me by adding my email after the share button. And I look forward to seeing the work that you do. Next week, we will read chapter 2 and continue with this. I'm really excited to be reading a book with you all. All right, have a great day.